I was doing some Dynasty startup drafts just recently, and when I got to like the 8th, 9th round, I saw Javonte Williams was on the board. And normally, I'd be like, okay, Javonte Williams this year should have more of a bell cow workload, should be used a lot by Sean Payton. And then as I started thinking about making that pick, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I think this might be a trap. Oh, not because I don't like Javonte Williams, because Javonte Williams, great player, but because I think Javonte Williams has a high potential of being replaced in this year's NFL draft. It's essentially why I'm not drafting running backs past like the top 3. I mean, there are really only like 4 running backs right now that I actually feel comfortable enough to where it's like, yeah, they're definitely not going to get drafted over. And sometimes being drafted over doesn't necessarily mean that they're completely obsolete after that. But that being said, Javonte Williams is a guy that I think Denver could easily draft somebody to bring in to compete with Javonte for carries. It's Sean Payton's own guy, somebody from this year's bad running back class. And then Javonte all of a sudden loses what? 2-3 rounds in value if that happens. We see this happen every year. These players that don't have a ton of security at their position on their respective roster, they get somebody else drafted at that position on their team, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you shouldn't have been drafting them. And running back is absolutely the position that stands out among all positions. This happens to the most. And so with Javonte, I like Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, obviously, he's still very young, but I think he is on this will be his 4th year of his rookie contract, right? Am I correct? Am I correct?
Third. Yeah, you're right. You are right.
4th
year already. Wow. Time flies.
But then again, Javonte Williams,
he's a 2nd-round running back too, so no 5th-year option. He's an unrestricted free agent after this year.
And it's not like his production has been bad, but you're talking like 12 point per game ceiling so far. And that's 2 full seasons played, his first and his 3rd season. First one being 12.1 points per game, the second one being 11.2 points per game. And obviously, with the receiving upside and getting to 750 yards plus, we like that. And I don't think it's anything to do with Javonte the player. I'm not necessarily sold that Denver is going to roll with Javonte next year as their only back. I mean, they brought in P. Ryan last year, and everybody was like, oh, P. Ryan's this, P. Ryan's that. P. Ryan wasn't anything, which we should have probably known that, and not anything fantasy relevant. But that being said, this year, I'm not sure they roll out there with just Javonte. My gut tells me that they're going to bring in another running back. Now, I mean, after obviously they draft a quarterback, if that's the direction they're going this year. But my guess is they bring in another running back. And just P. Ryan 7.1 points per game last year. So I just don't think they're rolling forward with this. And when they do draft another running back, you're going to see his dynasty value drop. And so the idea is I'm not drafting Javonte right now, but also I'm going to take this market value on Javonte and this price on Javonte because I think the odds that he increases on this value are very slim. And I think there are better odds, honestly, that he gets drafted over and then his value decreases. I'm curious what you think about that. But that was kind of what was going through my mind as I was doing my startup draft.
Yeah, and I think it really has to do mainly with just this time of year. We haven't gotten to the NFL rookie draft yet. We're in the early stages of the offseason before this long stretch of the summer where there's honestly... There shouldn't be a ton of value fluctuation. There is inevitably because we get bored. But right now is when there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of players that have gone to different teams. I mean, we just saw it with the Broncos specifically. Like, we think that Javonte Williams is a good pick in the 8th or 9th round. Like, we don't, but like we in general as a community and dynasty, we think that's where he should be going in the 8th or 9th round. When Sean Payton literally just showed that he has no loyalty to anyone on the Denver Broncos going into taking that job. He just got rid of a guy who has shown flashes, has not yet reached his possible potential in Jerry Jeudy, who had a ton of team investment. He doesn't care. Like, Sean Payton is building a culture. He's building an entirely different Denver Broncos organization, and to me, that just doesn't involve someone like Javonte Williams. But with running backs in general, this kind of brings us to this idea of, like, what do you do with running backs before the NFL draft? And I think we've kind of come to a conclusion that... You don't really heavily invest in them before the NFL draft. There's too much risk there. And I think that really has reigned true when we do all these team blueprints for people over at flockfantasy.com. /domain. Got to use code domain. Nice. But like Javonte Williams is one of those guys where I am consistently recommending to every single person that owns Javonte Williams, what are you really missing out on if you just safely move off of him and get a better situation? And on top of that, how many running backs are we comfortably recommending that people buy? Of the 36 relevant ones, 4 we counted.
4?
2 of which we're a little bit worried about. And they're on this list.
Yeah, they are. And honestly, like the worst case with Javonte is you don't draft him now. So I passed on him. So this is easier for me. I passed on him. If they don't draft anybody, that looks good for Javonte.
Yep.
I'll go buy Javonte. How much is his price going to go up after the draft and they don't draft anybody? Not really. Usually you don't see market value adjustments for somebody not getting drafted over. You only see something if something happens at affecting their value. That's typically how dynasty value works and the community reacts to things. It's a little bit harder if you have Javonte and you go to sell him because it's like you can't just buy him back because you'll probably. But again, when you're talking about our running back strategy right now in dynasty fantasy football, and you're talking about us really not drafting new running backs in startups, really not trading for running backs before the NFL draft and before free agency because of the volatility of like how they all move around right now. When you're talking about that strategy, it does mean that you're going to pay maybe 10% of higher of a price for a running back when you go to trade for him than if you would have before the draft. Maybe there's potential to pay, more 20% more. But here's the thing. The risk of rostering running backs and then them getting replaced or getting drafted over, in my opinion, it's totally worth just paying that extra 10% to go get running backs in the summer. And so that's what I'm doing. Like, I'll roll with Kendre Miller and Austin Eckler right now as my running backs. I'll roll with that because I know that I've got 2-3 months after the draft, after free agency, after all that all sorts out, that I can go trade for running backs. And so when you're talking about somebody like James Cook, James Cook is a guy that had a pretty good season last year, but this is
can I take this one? This is a team, the Buffalo Bills. I think they're transitioning to 12 personnel, like primarily a 12 personnel offense. They demonstrated that towards the end of last year, and that is not a James Cook bell cow offense. That's not what he can primarily run out of consistently. They are going to need a pound for pounds bruiser running back on first and second down, like that they can run the ball with consistently and probably give a lot of red zone opportunities. Does that mean they're going to draft a running back day 2 this year? No. Does that mean they'll draft a running back day 3, maybe early day 3, get an Audric Estime, maybe a Braylon Allen if he falls to the 4th round? I think that's very, very possible. And I think that there's just a lot of risk there. They just got rid of Stephon Diggs. Their best receiver is Khalil Shakir, who is the next... I don't know. Everyone thinks he's
Jerry
like
Rice.
the next best thing. But look, there's risk there. And do I think James Cook's price is atrocious and horrible right now? No. Do I think there's room for him to increase in value? Not enough for me to be comfortable investing in his current price, even though it's reasonable. I think there's more room for him to decrease in value than there is to increase in value because of the situation, because of the risk. Rachaad White. I like Rachaad White. He has a lot of passing volume. He commands a lot of passing volume for a quarterback who is middle of the pack at best in Baker Mayfield and just got extended. Dave Canales is gone. That offensive system is gone, and that really sucks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, including Rachaad White. There's the question of the offensive coordinator, and there's the question of, obviously, that includes the type of offense that they're going to run. Do they want to run their entire offense through Rachaad White, who, despite his volume, despite his receiving usage last year, was not an efficient runner of the football? He's a lot better splitting carries, in my opinion.
Well, and the other thing about Rachaad White is they've straight up come out and said that they're going to get somebody to split carries with him. And they said that his workload is going to be decreased. I mean, James Cook and Rachaad White are kind of in the same boat here. James Cook, everybody's like, okay, James Cook had a monster season. James Cook was 19th in fantasy points per game among running backs. And yes,
if you're going to invest in one of these, invest in Rachaad White over James Cook, please.
Sure, and it's nothing against James Cook. James Cook had a good season, and we dogged on James Cook coming to the NFL. And last year, he actually had a pretty good year.
We said his price was good going into his second year.
All right.
We did say he had a good price.
I'm just being impartial here.
Yeah.
But again, we look at this and say, okay, James Cook was an RB1 last year, but last year I think everybody will admit last year was a really bad year for running back. And so when you're looking at 13.7 points per game on 10th in the league in weighted opportunities, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to get that many opportunities, I think, again. 22nd in red zone touches while being 10th in opportunities, meaning the majority of his snaps, which of course, I know you know this, majority of his snaps are coming between the 20s. So with that being said, I don't think James Cook gets the opportunities he got this year next year. And when he doesn't, I don't think he becomes more efficient. I don't think Rachaad White becomes more efficient either. When you're looking at both of the receiving splits, that's where it was good. James Cook 2nd in yards per reception and 6th in yards per route run. So that's obviously good for a running back, and it's good for James Cook. Rachaad White, same thing. 5th in yards per reception. He was 13th in yards per route run. He was 3rd in route participation, but he also was 2nd in routes run, so he's got a lot of volume in the passing game. And we like to see that. So it's not don't invest in Rachaad White, but we pretty much already know that Rachaad White is going to get somebody paired with him back there. And once he does, he's going to be cheaper. So it's like, if you're going to use Rachaad White next season, which isn't a bad idea, he's a good fantasy running back and a good dynasty running back.
You may just want to wait a month.
Just wait.
Just wait a month.
Just wait. You'll get him at a cheaper price, right? And that's, we're trying to get value wins here. You'll get him at less value, and you'll still get that same bang for your buck. We already know it's coming. Next one is pretty funny because I think this is one of the clearer candidates to get drafted over this year.
Yeah, Zamir White is the guy here. This is a prime example of the vacated volume fallacy that we talk about all the time. When you have a clear running back one on an offense and they leave to go to a different team, or they get old, or they retire, it's always next man up. Everyone always says next man up. He's going to get all the volume. He's going to get all the opportunity. And no, he's not going to be as good as Josh Jacobs, but if he's 75% as good as Josh Jacobs, I'll take him at price. Wrong. You do not do that. Especially don't do it before the NFL draft. I forgot to throw Devin Singletary into here too, but Devin Singletary,
he's a good one.
like
at least he's on a contract though.
I know, but still, like there is no guarantee that these guys are going to be the running back one going into the season, and we've seen this plenty of times. Zamir White could go into the year being the lead back. There is no guarantee that he finishes as a lead back at the end of the season. Like we saw this with Kyron Williams a couple years ago. Towards the end of the season, he was hyper productive when everyone said it was Cam Akers' year. And even Kyron Williams, who was the clear running back one last year, 22 points per game, second only to Christian McCaffrey. We know how Sean McVay runs his offenses. We know how he feels about running backs. We know what he said after making the mistake of re-signing Todd Gurley.
Go back to Zamir White. I had stuff to say about Zamir White.
Oh, okay. Well, go back to Zamir White. That's fine.
Zamir White. You look who you can trade Zamir White for right now in Dynasty. This is actually ridiculous. You can get a mid-second. You can get Josh Downs. You can get Evan Ingram. You can get Matt Stafford in a Superflex league. You can get Alvin Kamara. You can get Cole Kmet, who's going to get a brand new quarterback. You can even get Kendra Miller. In my opinion, a much safer pivot there for a young running back. You can get Nick Chubb. Jacoby Myers is way down here. Dontavian Wicks. James Conner. All of those guys. If you can get a mid-second this year for Zamir White, like you're absolutely making that move right now. And good point that is made is that if they don't draft a running back, then his price is going to go up even more. I'm not even willing to take that. I don't think he's not going to get higher than an early second. So I'll just take the mid-second. I'll cash out now. Kyron Williams is the other one you were talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, again, the thing with McVay, it's well documented at this point, and I think everyone is treating Kyron Williams like he is a relatively volatile asset at the moment anyways. So he is one of the guys where even though we're concerned about his potential situation with the Rams long term, and maybe even if they take a guy day 3 this year and he has a chance to get opportunity, like they took a guy day 3 last year in Zach Evans and he ended up being nothing. Maybe he'll end up being something this year if this trend continues. But I think you got to ride the production with Kyron Williams, especially when you see how special it was last year and at his respective price. Like, sure, you look at him and he's like, oh, he's running back 6. So that's way too high. That's a ceiling. Running back 6 right now is like in the 4th or 5th round, which is way lower than you generally expect for someone who's going at running back 6 overall.
Granted, 21 points per game last year. Kyron was productive.
Right.
I will. This is how I'll put it. Because I'm not going to say sell Kyron Williams, because I don't think that's true.
No. I think there's a lot of scenarios where he's a buy.
I do too. But here's what I will say. Kyron Williams is not somebody I'm drafting in startup drafts. You can take that any way you want.
You trade for him at a discount in negotiations.
You can take that any way you want it. But when I'm on the clock and Kyron Williams is a good value into the 4th, I'm not comfortable taking him over the guys there. There are plenty of good young receivers, and even maybe Jared Goff is available there that I'm willing. And then the tight ends, a lot of the tight ends have been falling to the 4 or 5 turn. In startup drafts, Kyron Williams is just not somebody I'm drafting. I'm not saying to sell him. I'm not saying he's a sell. I'm not saying not to buy him. I'm just saying when I get there, my gut's like, I don't think I want to touch Kyron Williams. So you can do with that information whatever you want.
So we've kind of talked about a ton of running backs here, and that really is going to be the meat of this video. But there are a couple guys that are not running backs that we are a little bit worried about investing in right now, and it's not because we don't like them as talents or as players. Zay Flowers really mainly being that guy. Zay Flowers is a guy where I almost straight up don't know what to do with. Like he's a guy that I'm rarely touching in a lot of startup drafts, and he's a guy that I'm rarely bringing up unless I'm telling people to pivot off of him or sell him just in case in some team blueprints, because I'm like, well, ultimately, is he really going to be a consistent top 12 wide receiver in Dynasty? I wouldn't really put my money on that. But his price is reasonable right now, and I understand it. But at the same time, who's there? Who's in Baltimore at the wide receiver position past Zay Flowers? Bateman.
As a pass catcher, you have Mark Andrews, and that is literally it.
That's
Bateman's
it.
a non-factor. Bateman's not doing anything.
Yep. And you know who they really miss since they let him go? Hollywood Brown. And what have we seen? A lot of people are kind of pairing like a Xavier Worthy type wide receiver
Troy Franklin.
with Troy Franklin. Even if they take a wide receiver day 2, round 2, round 3, I'm worried about how that could potentially take away from Zay Flowers. Now, maybe it could help, maybe it couldn't. But what does the Dynasty community tend to do when another wide receiver enters that offense,
so
especially in a rushing
That's the bigger
offense?
thing. Like whether or not Zay Flowers can redo what he did last year, 13 points per game, Zay Flowers can do that again with Lamar.
Yes.
But it's his value.
It's his value and it's his price. Can you invest in
Yes.
Zay Flowers later
Exactly.
at a cheaper price than he's going for now?
Yes.
When you know that there's a really solid chance that they spend a day 1 or day 2 pick on another wide receiver.
And I don't think anybody would argue that Zay Flowers is the true one. I don't think anybody's making that argument. So
Is there a true one in that type of offense anyways? Like,
there might not be. But again, it's about his value. Gardner Minshew's on here at quarterback position. And I don't know what you're getting for Gardner Minshew. This was suggested by our analytics team. And when you're looking at like his value right now, you're not getting a lot.
he's equivalent to like a mid to late second, because he's on a 2-year deal worth $15 million total. But the thing with Minshew is there's a lot of people that are kind of just snagging him. Even, we don't generally talk about these rounds, but there are some relevant rounds with some relevant quarterbacks in the range of like the 12th to 14th round where people are tempted to kind of take him in that range because, in fairness, he's going to be a starting quarterback and he provided a lot of volume for a lot of weapons in the Colts offense just last year. The thing with a guy like Minshew is there's a chance, in my opinion, there's a really good chance that the Raiders take a QB day 1 or day 2 in this year's draft. Penix, obviously, everyone talks about Michael Penix going to the Raiders. How realistic is that? I don't know. It's realistic enough that I'm willing to hold off on heavily investing in Minshew until after the draft, because if they take a quarterback now, with Minshew's contract, Minshew can start for however long they want him to start this year, and then after that, they're cutting him. He's gone. He only has $7 million in dead cap next year.
Are you taking an early third or Sam Darnold?
Darnold is a little bit of a different situation because you know for a fact, like he's on a 1-year, $10 million deal, and I think even if they draft Drake May, they're going to start Sam Darnold.
I think there's a greater than 50% chance he starts this year. So
yes, I would rather take Darnold, and Darnold's cheaper.
Yes, you're right. Darnold is cheaper. James Conner, another running back here, and one that honestly we sing the praises of James Conner. We acknowledge that James Conner has gotten better as he's gotten older. He was very efficient last year. Given a full healthy season with Kyler Murray, like we think James Conner can be a beast. Do the Cardinals? I'll just be honest. I like James Conner a lot, and I advocate for James Conner, and you can even put it on our team blueprints. But I'm not drafting James Conner either. It just scares me because I know if they draft a running back, his value will go to the 16th round.
Have you seen Conner go for even a late second when
I
you
haven't
trade
seen
for
him
him?
moved a lot, so I don't know. I know he's being drafted in the range where the second round picks are being picked. So I know he's somewhere value equivalent to it's a late second. It's exact 210 is what he's valued.
For me, the difference with James Conner is I kind of put him in that tier of those old guys that you know are replaceable in their 1-year rentals. That's Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, James Conner, Zach Moss I would put in there as well, even Austin Eckler. Those are kind of those older running backs where you know, like, hey, I'm taking this guy now in the anywhere from the 10th to 14th round, and they're probably going to score me some points, and they're going to die on my roster. James Conner, we've been expecting to die on our roster for a while now, and he just continually hasn't. They did pick up that option in 2024 where they're going to owe him, I think, $6 million. And for me, it's like, okay, if they draft a running back, do I think that James Conner's production upside this year is being flushed down the toilet?
Probably not.
No.
But again,
Like-
it's more about the value hit he would take and the fact that I can get him
Okay,
cheaper
but
later.
like, what's the value hit you're taking for a guy that I haven't even seen go for a late second?
He's definitely value equivalent to late second.
Okay, but have you seen any trades where someone has actively gone and acquired James?
No.
Because he's usually just he's a throw-in.
No, but again, I'm not even saying don't trade for James. What I'm saying is in startups, I'm not drafting James Conner here because I think there's a significant chance that he loses value before the end of the offseason, and then I'll buy him. So I'm saying if you're going to buy him later, not now.
But again, Connor, you're not even investing in for his offseason value. You're investing in him even if you're a contender for him to score you points, or even if you're not contending, to sell him in the middle of the season when he is.
Is his value going to go up from now on at the beginning of the season? There's literally no chance it does.
No, you do it for during the season, just like any other one-year rental running back that's worth whatever they're worth in that price range.
But I'm saying if you buy him, don't buy him now, buy him later. After the draft, because you'll buy him for the same price, and you'll know that he's going to be the starting running back this year.
But again, like, what really is going to be? Is it really going to be that big of a price difference when he's already pretty cheap?
If they draft a running back, yeah, it absolutely could be. Yeah, if they draft a young running back what if they drafted Blake Corum? What would happen to his value?
Yeah, but like what happened to Derrick Henry's value when they took a day 2 running back last year in Tyjae Spears? He didn't really lose that much value because everyone knew that Henry was going to be the bell cow for his final year in Tennessee.
Maybe.
And we treated him as a 1-year rental. You get what I'm saying there?
But Derrick Henry is a unicorn. Derrick Henry is always going to be the workhorse back there. Like James Conner's older, not as dominant, not used as much, and at the same time, I don't think you shouldn't argue with this. Like, you're going to get him cheaper later in the offseason. Like, there's no reason to buy him now. If you're going to buy him, you can buy him later. I don't feel like that's a bold take.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a bold take to say, like, does it really matter because he's generally a throw-in anyways. So
that's a hill to die on right there. Brian Robinson. Another guy that's like, okay, Brian Robinson, he has Austin Eckler there. They brought in Eckler, and Eckler could be something. Eckler alone could take away from Brian Robinson's value, but I don't think we've seen Austin Eckler in that trade like actually hinder Brian Robinson's value. I don't think. I'll double check, but I don't think that Austin Eckler has done anything. And when you're looking at what Brian Robinson was actually able to do, you remember he was a top 12 running back, like
very under the radar.
Yeah, like he was a top 12 running back through most of the season. And no, actually it did. He went from RB 19 to RB 29.
And then he gained some value.
And then he gained it back to 22, and he's leveled out at like 27
now.
So he has lost value because of Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
So maybe Brian Robinson's one that like, I don't think
the worry with him is it's a completely different offensive system. They totally cleared out that coaching staff, and you're looking at Dan Quinn as a head coach now, which, you know, obviously his history in Dallas, and then Cliff Kingsbury, he likes to run his own type of offensive system, which last I checked is not like multi-running back friendly. It's very air raidy. So Brian Robinson, like, why invest in him now when they could move off of him anytime they really wanted to? They could totally replace him in this year's draft if they found a piece that was more effective, more relevant to Kingsbury's style of offense as well. It's just like every time we see him on the board, it's like, ugh, why? You know, like why would I spend my pick on him?
No, and generally we're not drafting running backs a lot right now, anyways, in startups. So Brian Robinson's no exception, but he'll be interesting. Like I don't think they take a running back this year. Usually when you take a rookie quarterback, you wait a year to draft a running back, so we'll see. But again, those are guys right now that could get replaced in the draft that you might want to sell. Some of them is like, they're not worth selling, but if you're going to buy them later. It just depends. But speculation, again, we're not saying hard sell. James Cook, not a hard sell. Rashad White, not a hard sell by any means. So do not say that in the comments. Make sure you drop a like on this video, and make sure you subscribe if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. Head over to flockfantasy.com/domain and use code domain. You get a team blueprint, one of these pretty things, and you also get our 2024 Dynasty Domain rookie draft guide, as well as our Discord, as well as all of our exclusive research articles. You get one-on-one access to Nathan and I. We have fun, and there's over 350 Dynasty players over there now. So flockfantasy.com/domain. Like I said, use code domain when you sign up to get all of our exclusives. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you later.